Toni Morrison is here. She is the Robert F. Goheen Professor of Humanities at Princeton. Her books include The Bluest Eye, Song of Solomon, Beloved, and Paradise. She has received the National Book Critics Circle Award and the Pulitzer Prize. In 1993, she was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. Her new novel is called Love. I am pleased to welcome Toni Morrison back to this table. Welcome.
It's good to be here.
Great to see you.
Thanks.
You know, you reminded me as I went to say hello to you before we walked in here that I have a philosophy of life, which is that you regret the things you don't do, not the things you do in the great scheme of things. In 1993, you and I were sitting at dinner, and you said, come go to the Nobel ceremony.
Right.
And you told me how great it would be, who would be there, and I was, quote, too busy.
Yes, you were.
I somehow thought whatever I was doing, I couldn't get away, the show, blah, blah, blah.
You don't even remember it now, do you?
No,
what you
I don't
doing?
know. Exactly. That's why I'm telling this story. And you reminded me, because you hadn't forgotten, and I certainly hadn't forgotten, because I had told somebody this very week, I said, you know, one of the things I really regret is when Toni invited little old me to go to the Nobel ceremony.
And there'll never be another person who invites you.
Never invite me to go to the Nobel ceremony again. Now, was Nelson Mandela going to be there?
He was there.
That's exactly right.
He was in Oslo, you know,
right,
for the Peace
right.
Prize. So I got
and you
to
had
meet
said to me,
him.
we'll meet, you know. Oh, goodness. Well, anyway, you live and learn, you know. Now, you're going to read something from me from here, but first, tell me about this book, Love, and we'll talk about other things as well.
Well, it had a strange beginning. I sort of didn't know quite where I was going to go, but shortly I discovered that there was this period, you know, in African-American history, in American history, that has been reduced to a very simple story. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, everybody jumped on the train. Hard work, some battles, it all came out fine, more or less. Yeah. It's a story of progress, but it seems as though it was too simple. I think we all know it's a little bit more complicated than that. One of the things that existed was a lot of wariness, caution, and even resistance within the black community for very, very good reasons. Before the Civil Rights Movement, there was the necessity for a flourishing black entrepreneurial class, good schools, law schools, black only, medical schools, black. They serviced the race. Well, once the progress was in force, two things happened. Such people were frequently called bourgeois, race traders, too many connections, you know, with the white establishment. And also, African Americans could then choose, which was the whole point, where they wanted to live, where they wanted to vacation, what schools they wanted to attend. And that process of gaining fuller citizenship and becoming Americans in that sense, and assimilating was great. And there were also losses, and some of the losses are clarified, I hope, in that book, Love, because that's the span of time.
Yeah. Now, the community, when I read this, I thought of the place in Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but you set this in North Carolina.
No, I didn't mention the state. Everybody has. I didn't want to be too specific.
No.
Sort of vaguely Florida to me.
Florida to you.
Right. Because there is a famous one down there called Liberty Island. It's not quite as classy as that one, but I'm growing up in Ohio, and there was one on Lake Erie near Detroit.
Right.
There's some on the East Coast. There was some in Louisiana. A friend of mine just told me there was one up by her near High Falls in New York State. But these were vacation spots. Some were family-oriented, some were not. They were different, you know, levels of society that attended. But this one, in Love, was hot. I mean, it was delicious. It was big. It was generous. All the musicians came. Yeah. And it stayed around through the 60s, in my view.
And then what happened?
Well, nobody came. Not only did people get older, musicians could go anywhere, and people could go to Ocho Rios if they wanted to, and did. Yeah. And they had cruises they could attend to now. I mean, you know, get tickets. So fewer and fewer of those people came, and they had to open their doors to the people they didn't open their doors to before, which were the raggedy underclass poor.
Right.
But who, before civil rights, had kind of admired them a little bit. You know, look what he has done, race men, etc.
Right.
then all that changed. And then what was interesting to me, although it's not in the book, is that part of the very nationalistic movement during the Civil Rights Movement was about black nationalism, which was also about separatism. We want our own businesses, which is exactly what was going on in the late 30s and 40s.
Yeah, I mean, I have this conversation all the time about, you know, the African-American market in terms of consumers is so powerful as to why there are not more African-American businesses serving that. You know, and more you see it. I mean, you see it in terms of visible means. You see it in terms of what, I mean, I'm thinking now of very highly visible people like Magic Johnson is doing in terms of building theaters in the black community. And, you know.
But the entrepreneurship is limited in many ways. Well, because they're absorbed into the mainstream. Yeah. Where they're president of Amex, or where they have their own businesses and so on.
That
and
was president of Amex and Ken Chenault, is it?
Yes.
President of Merrill Lynch, Stan Neal.
Right.
I mean, on and on and on.
Right. So they're in there now.
Yeah.
All right. So, but there is room for neighborhood things.
Right.
But the neighborhood is different, and so the businesses want everybody's business, not just black people's business.
This is way off the beaten track. Is there any great, you know, there's a kind of gentrification taking place in Harlem now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Are people do they like that in the community or not? I mean, they think, look, our community is getting better. We have better shops, better restaurants, better everything.
Well, they want contradictory things.
Yeah, exactly.
As usual, they want the gentrification because it's beautiful.
Right.
Those things that have been done. They may quarrel about this or that company moving in. They want to stay there. And they want it to be African American, but you know, you can't have it that way. It's not going to work. If you gentrify and you're pulling back in a professional class, that professional class may be white, black, Hispanic, anything.
Which it in fact is.
And in which it is.
Right.
So you're never going to have that consistency in the neighborhood like that again when there are resources involved and money. So you can't have both. I mean, you really can't unless you just, you know, cut it up. I wanted those women who hate each other for most of the book. Yeah. One from a really tacky, not just a poor family, but a sort of dysfunctional one, and one, the granddaughter of the wealthy homeowner. Their lives sort of parallel, in my mind, that shift. They started out, regardless of whether one was poor, very much in love. You know, they were kids, they fell in love as friends. And the neighborhoods were like that. You know, the doctor lived next door to the truck driver who lived next door to the, and they all went to the same barbershop, etc. Okay, now you can move anywhere, which is important and necessary, and then something happens. There's a split, economic split. Right. Now, as an academic, I realized that African-American academics get their authenticity, so to speak, from speaking for the street. Right. Right? They do their research there. That's where they're maybe from. They have to be intimate. However, you don't get the sense that the street knows what they're talking about. Yeah. Or unless you have somebody like, you know, Cornel West, who's in much time in prisons as he is in the university. But that widening class distinctions, which happened with every group that came here. I mean, it's just belated with African Americans, was represented by their living together in this incredible silent hatred, nevertheless living together, but unable to say what it was, unable to reconcile after all these years.
Are you equally satisfied? And you know, everybody looks at Beloved. 90% of the people I know think Beloved is the masterpiece.
Yes.
Do you?
No.
You don't?
Well, it's good.
I know it's, well, no, but I mean, compared to the others is a question, not, I mean, in the reviewer's mind, I bet you in Oprah's mind, Beloved is #1.
Well, it has the advantage of being about slavery. Right. And that is so big and so full of sensation. If you get in there and feel comfortable in there, in the book, and feel things powerfully, that's a big thing. Right. Now, the other books are about migration from the South
Right,
to the North to New York jazz.
Right.
It's a less romanticized, big
Gotcha.
historical
Yeah,
thing.
You know, in other words, this was your. But you set out saying, "This is my great piece of work here. You know, I'm going to do a lot of good work here, but this is my great piece of work because it's the great epic. It's the great theme."
No,
You
I
didn't?
just had quit my job at Random House, and I felt so good and so free and so loose and so things I'd never seen before or listened to before.
Now, when was this? About 87?
83.
83.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took a long time to get to 87 to
Yeah,
write that book.
right.
But in 83 when I left, and I was scared because, you know, I have to have a job, you know,
Right.
I'm a depression child.
Right.
And I took somebody's advice and left, maybe my own advice, and there was this extraordinary feeling. It was almost like fear. You know, I'm out here by myself. I don't have any job. I'm going to live on my royalties. What kind of nonsense is that? But then there
I
was...
got 2 children.
Yeah, right. And so I'm floating out there thinking, this is the scariest thing I've ever done, but it was so thrilling. And then...
And liberating.
Totally. And that's when Beloved appeared. That girl, I mean, it was just as clear to me as daylight how that would go.
But you knew after the first book that you were a writer,
Oh, yeah.
and you knew that's what you wanted to do.
That's true.
I mean, you continued to teach and to be an editor
Yes,
at Random
I did.
until 83.
Yes,
And continued to teach after that.
yes.
But you knew,
And that was a big thing.
I am a writer.
Yes,
That's
I
what I'm
am.
here to do.
That's
Right.
exactly right. I
Right.
didn't know before, and I was not a young writer,
No,
mind
this
you.
was- you were-
I was in my late 30s.
Exactly.
Blue started publishing when I was 39.
Yeah.
So it takes a while. But once I had begun it, that was it for me. There was nothing more important to me in the world except to mother my children.
To mother your children and write these books.
That's all. And anything that wasn't helping those two things, I wasn't going to do. It didn't help me be a good parent.
Or write
Or
feature
good book.
stories. Yeah.
I wasn't doing it.
In setting out to do this, what are you just telling stories that you think are? I mean, tell me about this. Started because you wanted to deal with an idea, or you wanted to take characters and put them on a path.
It's a question, not a real idea, sort of a question.
A question.
What about this? What would happen if this? But the next step is not pressing on that idea or that question. It's finding characters who can manifest it for me. I had to start. The first section I wrote was not about Mr. Cozy.
Right.
It was about this teenage boy
Right.
at a party. And I just knew that so well. So I wrote it. Then I had to put him in context. That kind of instinctive, caring love this kid had to save somebody in a situation where his peers are pressuring him to do a bad thing, and he doesn't even know he's doing it, and he is now ostracized because loving or caring is weakness, and he knows it, and he's ashamed of that very human, very lovely instinct to care for something that's wounded. So that was one kind of love, and then I built these other kinds emanating from this figure of Mr. Cozy, who, by the way, is just a guy.
Right.
I mean, the women, and maybe the society, and certainly maybe even himself, have given him all these incredible roles. The ultimate friend, the perfect husband. You know, he's not thinking about any of them, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
But the last chapter, and he did, you know, meddle a lot in their lives, is called Phantom.
Yeah.
Because they have to get rid of him. I mean, they allowed themselves, a lot of them, to be seduced by, ruined by, controlled by Bill Cozy.
Yeah.
Nobody
They
just-
allow themselves to be done.
Which is what
They do.
women frequently do with men. You
Really?
let them do the terrible thing or the big chop thing.
We have
or,
no chance unless you let us. Unless
we can
you
walk
let
out.
us.
You can leave.
Okay, but that,
But just the idea, the image, the control in the mind, not just the physical life, of what your life is. Well, he, and therefore this. Once they gave it up,
are most of your characters' life's winners or losers?
always winners.
Always winners.
Always. Even if they drop dead.
They're winners.
They're winners.
There is some value there that
They learned something very, very important. Some critical thing they learned that they never would have known except for the novel. Their experiences are epiphanies. I think those are happy endings when you finally figure it out and you know it. Well, maybe they don't have a car, or maybe they don't have the loved one or whatever, but this is the life of the mind and the spirit, and they win. They're not stupid anymore.
Now, you also were a former editor. Does that make you a better writer, that you to edit other people's stuff yourself?
Yeah, it makes me better.
Does it really?
It makes me better.
Makes you better.
Right.
May or may not have made them better. But it makes you better because...
I know things. I know...
Like what?
I know...
You know what a story's about. You know what a character's about.
No, but I know more about when people fall in love with their work, what that means, how terrible that is. I know, I mean, you know...
Oh, wait. You mean when a writer falls in love with his work and does not want to see one word or one character or one whole storyline eliminated?
Yeah, and he's writing probably badly. When you love it, you know...
You can't see. Love is blind.
You don't want that. You know, I'm sure Hemingway was trying to get all that stuff out. That's his big deal, you know, getting all the sentiment out, getting all the mess out, taking away the honey. Right. So in that sense, even though you're writing in a different style, and most people are, you have to know when to stop.
Right.
Not to write just because you can. Not to fall in love too much with these little sentences that came up. And the most important thing is to know that if you write it over, it will be better each time.
Now, here goes. Robert Gottlieb is your editor.
He is.
I read somewhere that he said, Toni, now I'm paraphrasing this, you and I, we got to get it right because we don't know how many more of these we're going to do. Is that about right?
He's feeling mortal.
Yeah, mortal, exactly. Is that?
He's older than I am.
He's 80.
No, he's not.
How old is he?
He's my age. He's 72
He's 72 or something like that. He's also doing Clinton's book, isn't he doing
Yes,
Clinton's
he
book?
is.
Who you call the first black president.
I repeated that. Chris Rock said that.
Oh, Chris Rock said it first, you just repeated it. That's great.
I get the creds, but Chris Rock. I quoted Chris.
Oh my God. Now see, Chris Rock can go Chris Rock can go to dinner on the fact that Toni Morrison gave him credit. You know? Nobel laureate says Chris Rock gave me that idea. You know,
took a lot.
But you did say it. But Gottlieb, what does Gottlieb do for you? So let's establish he's a great editor.
He is, for me, a great editor.
And he's been with you on every
book except the time when he went away.
Right. He went away to New Yorker, right.
So
that
jazz,
what was that, 2 or 3 years, or was that long?
About 5 years, I think.
Right.
So Jazz in Paradise I did without him.
And?
I loved every minute of it.
Did you really?
Well, because
people didn't like it Paradise, don't think Paradise is one of your best books. They don't.
All right. They're entitled.
In fact, people are saying this is better than Paradise.
Oh, well, they're entitled to anything.
All right.
But those 2 books, I needed to know that I could do this without him. That was an important thing for me.
To you?
To me, internally. Can you write without that eye that's been looking next to you all these years? And luckily I can, as Jazz proved.
And Paradise didn't.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. Now, here's what a friend of mine, I was over at 60 Minutes Today, and I had a friend named Stephen Glauber, who was a producer over there. And he said, tell me about Toni's new book. I said, I got to go over here and interview. And I said, well, you know, some people like it a lot, and some people don't like it. He said, Toni Morrison doesn't have to worry about critics.
Oh, no, never did.
Never did.
Except for marketing purposes.
Yeah.
I like to take their quotes out and put them in an ad. No, but you can't.
Oh, you take
really.
a good quote and put it in an ad.
If it's any good, right? Yeah. I'll do that.
But have you ever written a letter to? I mean, you ever call up and Machiko, this is Toni.
Stop it.
Stop it.
No. First of all, reviewers and critics are entitled to their opinion.
Exactly.
I have books.
The magnanimity of Toni Morrison.
No, but I read books I loathe. Nobody asks me about them. They're awful, you know, and I feel like I have the right to say it or think it or feel it.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. What I dislike is bad reviews, meaning badly thought through, badly written. They sound like...
You once told me that on the air, I think. You were really upset about something because you thought the person didn't get it.
They didn't only get it, they wrote like 11th grade book report. Calling names and repeating the plot. No, I don't. Which I had some great good fortune, though. I've had some reviews written by fiction writers. It's a most extraordinary thing. They don't even approach the book that way. They write about it.
I don't get the point. What?
Well, instead of being reviewers who have lots of books to read,
right. Instead of
but
being
they're also writers.
I see.
And they write novels.
Yeah.
So they look at it differently. And
better, for better or worse?
Much better. I don't mean they like the book better, because, you know, they may, but they understand what the project was. So their language is the language of a writer talking to another writer. It's lovely. I like that. I like that a lot.
Do you do any? Would you review a book if they called you up and said?
I'd like to, but I don't think I can now because it's like
because you are Toni Morrison.
But I sometimes give blurbs to young writers. I do that, you know, to writers who first books. Makes a difference.
You don't need blurbs, I can see. Only if you're not known. Yeah. I want you to reflect on this genuinely now.
All right.
It is the notion of being Toni Morrison.
Yes.
The great Toni Morrison, the Nobel laureate Toni Morrison, the grand Toni Morrison.
Yeah. What about it?
Well, I mean, is it intoxicating?
Oh, that's somebody that sits right over there. She sort of walks behind me.
Yeah, when you walk into the room, it's Toni Morrison.
No, that's her. She gets the good seat. She gets the everything. She gets all the stuff.
I mean,
we're
in, you know, reverential awe, even though we might not like a book.
You
are Toni Morrison. You are Toni Morrison.
Well, I'm going to keep her out there. Then.
Oh, you are. No. But I would think it
could be, you know, prohibited.
It could be what?
It could stifle
Well, it sure could. I mean, but my guess is your work habits haven't changed.
No, they have not.
You know?
No. I am this writer person. Yeah. And the other person, the one that may be...
The celebrated
person, is an all right woman.
Yeah.
She's nice.
Right.
And she gets things done, and people say, come on in.
Right.
But she didn't have anything to do with real life.
Yeah,
I mean, my life.
I know exactly.
She didn't have anything to do with that.
Because you have said every book is like starting over.
It is. It's like that white paper, that yellow tablet. What are you thinking? What do you mean? And nothing I've done before helps.
Says, speak to me.
Yeah.
Is what it says.
Now what do you
Make
got to
me
say?
speak.
Right?
Yeah. What do you have?
It's new. And that's
Give
great.
It to me.
That's great. I don't want to do the same thing again. My books will always be, I hate, I love, because they're very different. It's the milieu that's the same. I think I will always write about African Americans. I think. I may not. But it's the change in view, in technical things, in substrata. Even the palette changes. You know, this is a water book. The other book was a desert book. All these things play for me in communicating in the structure and the palette of the book as much as the plot. So that's what's interesting and commanding for me, is that work. No previous book can help me with a new canvas, if you see what I mean. If I'm going to be, I don't know, Ella Fitzgerald, and I'm going to sing Cole Porter, and I'm going to sing George Gershwin, but you're always going to know I'm Ella, even though what I sing may be happy, sad, you know, depressing, and whatever the lyrics are.
Well, it's a common denominator between jazz and Sula, was it? Jazz, Beloved, Paradise, Love. It's Toni.
That's right.
That's the common denominator.
Yeah.
That's the person that each time in a different note has breathed life into these people.
And then you don't knock them out of the court every time.
Yeah.
For the public, well, what I want are readers who have a visceral reaction to the book. Many do. And they get the meaning. And they're with me on that.
They're with you because they're with you for the entire journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't mind.
Opening the door. It like life.
Yeah, they're there.
This year may not be quite as good as last year. And not as good as next year.
Or good in different ways.
No, good in different ways. So that makes it...
No, that makes you have a career.
That's what
That's what I want.
Yeah. Do you live with the notion that I have not yet done my best work?
Yeah. That's true.
You do.
I haven't done it yet. I'm gonna. I really am.
And it's not some specific thing, some specific story, some specific character. You know it'll be with the Black experience.
I'm certain of that,
Certain of
probably.
that, I do.
Yeah. No, but I know.
But you know you have not employed all that you can
that's
yet.
Right. That's right. There's a high note I have not kicked.
And each time you go out, you make it more possible
yes.
that you'll get there.
That's right.
Better or worse.
Yes, we're going there.
We're going there. Does it get any harder or any easier?
The easy things get easier.
Yeah.
The hard things get harder. But
the language.
Oh, the language is just, you just have to work. You have to earn that kind of simple, excuse the expression, elegance.
But see, I would think at some point the language, which is elegant, you'd get that at some point. I mean, you can...
Oh, I can get it that way. But it's not... This is a good thing. Bob Gottlieb said to me once, I wrote a wonderful passage of a woman's despair. It was so beautiful, and I got it. It was just right. And I showed it to him, and he said, nah. I said, what are you talking about? This is pure pain. This is so lean. This is so pure. And he said, yes, but it's your pain. It's not hers. So even when you get the language, be careful.
Exactly.
It may not be the character's language or the character's view.
Yeah, but see, that'd be very hard, I would think, because, I mean, it is your pain that you are putting in there.
No, I'm not.
You're not.
No, this is her story.
You got to find her pain.
That's right.
And it doesn't match your pain.
I'm in her head like an actress, right?
Yeah, but what you're bringing to her head is everything you know. That's
Language.
all you can bring.
That's right. And my willingness to bear witness and to see the world from her or his point of view. I'm not judging, and I'm not condoning, and I'm not twisting them. I'm saying, I'm listening. In a sense. Tell me, what's your shoe size? What size you put your hair on? And they talk and talk, or they let me know. Of course, the bad thing is that they don't know how to write novels, so I have to shut them up and get on with something else in the book. But that willingness to listen, hear, see, be aware of, in order to do them justice, do the character justice, not have dinner with them, but to do them justice. That's not my personality, but it should be on target for them. Don't you think?
I do. Now, men versus women.
Yeah.
You've written about both.
Yes.
Do you know the women more than the male characters you've created?
I'm beginning to know the men a great deal. With Song of Solomon was my first attempt to really try to look at the world that way, as going out and being confrontational,
right,
vengeance and all that,
right,
and the relationship with women as kind of subordinate people. So that took some doing. It's harder, but now I think I'm easier with it. I think I'm easier with it because I love them so much.
Is there anything missing in the Toni Morrison story?
Things that I want, or things?
Yeah, just a sense. Think about this. I mean, you are Toni Morrison. You have a fascinating life at Princeton as a Robert F. Goheen professor. You write every 3 or 4 years. You come out with a new book, right? You are continuing to do what you believe you came here to do. You have 2 loving kids who I forgot
grandkids
and grandkids now. Yeah. Now, this is the kind of stuff you would write about. You would tell me if you were a character where you were.
Oh,
on the.
What a boring character I would make.
You don't think that?
Oh no, it's just like and then.
It would be boring, you think?
Yeah.
Do you really? Your life is not dramatic enough?
My mind is what is interesting. My life is not.
Your mind is what makes you interesting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's only that. The days I spend are just pedestrian. I like them like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't ski.
So what
I
is
don't
rich
go
about
anywhere.
Toni is her mind.
Absolutely.
Her imagination.
And her heart.
Her heart. Her soul. And her skill.
That's right. That's it. I don't do anything interesting.
See, that's very interesting. But you do nothing interesting, but you do only what you love.
That's right.
Which
I
is
only
to
have
give
time for
expression to. Do you feel a sense of that?
I'm an artist.
Artist.
I am an artist.
And I mean, but do you worry, I've got so much to do, and there is a finite time, and I am closer to the end than I am to the beginning.
True.
And I know that
I felt pressured when I was 30. I mean, it was just like, I thought time was infinite, but I had so much to do, layered, 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 and only I could do it. Now, there are other people's requests, which I may accept or not, but I only have to think. That's really all I have to do, and be nice to the people I love. That's all. And if I pick up a whole bunch of stuff I don't want to do, that's my problem. I don't have to do it. I just have to think, I have to create, and I have to be a human being with other people.
Before I go, I want you to read something for me. And you actually have selected it.
Have I?
You did indeed.
Okay.
There you go.
Young people, Lord, do they still call it infatuation? That magic axe that chops away the world in one blow, leaving only the couple standing there trembling? Whatever they call it, it leaps over anything, takes the biggest chair, the largest slice, rules the ground wherever it walks, from a mansion to a swamp, and its selfishness is its beauty. Before I was reduced to sing-song, I saw all kinds of mating. Most are two-night stands trying to last a season. Some, the riptide ones, claim exclusive right to the real name, even though everybody drowns in its wake. People with no imagination feed it with sex, the clown of love. They don't know the real kinds, the better kinds, where losses are cut and everybody benefits. It takes a certain intelligence to love like that, softly, without props. But the world is such a showpiece. Maybe that's why folks try to outdo it, put everything they feel on stage, just to prove they can think of things too. Handsome, scary things like fights to the death, adultery, setting sheets afire. They fail, of course. The world outdoes them every time. While they are busy showing off, digging other people's graves, hanging themselves on a cross, running wild in the streets, cherries are quietly turning from green to red. Oysters are suffering pearls. And children are catching rain in their mouths, expecting the drops to be cold, but they're not. They're warm and smell like pineapple before they get heavier and heavier. So heavy and fast they can't be caught one at a time. Poor swimmers head for shore, while strong ones wait for lightning's silver veins. Bottle green clouds sweep in, pushing the rain inland, where palm trees pretend to be shocked by the wind. Women scatter, shielding their hair, and men bend low, holding the women's shoulders against their chests. I run too, finally. I say finally because I do like a good storm.
Very good. Now, here's the interesting thing. Thank you. Here's the interesting thing. You've written novels, you are now writing a libretto.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Sorry.
Where did this come from?
Well, it's a brilliant musician, and I had worked together at a program I do at Princeton called the Princeton Atelier. Right. And he wanted to
Did you create that?
I did indeed.
I thought so.
Yes. He wanted to do the historical Margaret Garner, not the woman that I, expropriated for the purposes of Beloved.
Right.
He wanted to do the real story. And he wanted me to write the libretto, and I said, no. But then I thought, opera in English, with a few exceptions, Menotti, for example, doesn't sound so good.
Right.
We're used to hearing it in German or Italian or what have you. When you translate that into English, it's just, it It doesn't read well. It sounds beautiful. But you could, you know, Porgy or Bess, You Is My Woman. I mean, it's great. It's great music. But so I got interested in trying to write a libretto that was English, that was vernacular, that was beautiful, even without the music, although it was not going to compete with the music. So that was my interest. So I did.
And when will it be performed?
2005.
Is that right?
Yeah.
In Europe or here? Or
here. There have been 3 opera companies who have chipped in to commission it, and the music is unbelievable. It's just so beautiful. It's breathtaking. It's just beautiful.
Now, do you have musical talent?
No, none. None.
Voice? Voice?
I can't sing.
You know, never sang in the choir?
Well, yeah, when I was a kid, before I knew I couldn't sing.
Yeah, right, exactly. when people next to you say,
Right.
you know. You also write children's books.
I have done, yeah.
With your son?
With my son.
Right.
He's a painter, but we got together on some stuff that I thought was so funny.
Did you like that?
I loved it. It was a little rocky there.
Yeah.
For him, you know, he's a painter.
Sure.
He's writing with his mother and
Right.
her, you know, so he was very sort of aggressive.
You have a great relationship with these kids.
Oh, yeah.
And how many grandchildren?
3.
3? Mm-hmm. And you see them, they come to Princeton, the whole business?
Yeah, we do everything.
Huh?
Yes.
Right. Memoir.
Oh. If I had a memory, I think I could write a memoir.
Yeah.
I'm losing it, you know? I relied totally on my sister.
But they all tell me, do you really?
Oh, yeah.
Because they tell me that once you start writing, it all comes flooding back.
It does. It does.
You know, once you get into it,
Yeah.
and you'll have a piece of paper,
Yeah,
and it'll
that's
just
true.
be a piece
That's
of paper,
true.
but
That's
will come with a,
Yeah.
you know, be washed over by memory that will
True,
be
true.
found and
Yeah.
discovered and unleashed.
Yeah. Maybe I have to get interested in myself. I think if I did.
I know, just what your earlier remarks suggested to me. You just think that you...
I like myself, but I'm just not interested in that.
Yeah.
I just looked at Marquez, who is flawless as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned, and he's written the first part of his memoir.
Yeah.
Incredible, just beautiful. All those people, that place, his mother, and I'm thinking, oh God, I can't do that.
There are those who say that that there was a mantle passed when Jimmy Baldwin died. That then you picked up that.
You see me leaning away from it.
I know you are. But there is Ellison, and there is Jimmy Baldwin, and there is you, and I'm obviously forgetting lots of good people.
You are.
I am.
You are.
Some I don't probably should know and don't, but
That's right. You're
Right.
forgetting a lot of people.
I know that. But was there?
No, I didn't do
Was
any of the
anybody?
stuff.
There's no sense
No,
of.
no, that's just, you know, that's the narrative talk. The real truth is there are a lot of people writing all the time. I'm one. And it's true that I have a central sort of celebrity status.
Right.
But that doesn't confuse other writers, and it certainly doesn't confuse me.
It doesn't confuse the
No.
Academy or anybody.
No, we're all in here doing this thing.
Right.
The fact that they pick me this 5 years or whatever, and somebody else next year, it's got to be, it's just a little story of rank. And I will not put myself in a competitive relationship with another book or another author. That's not why I'm writing. That's not at all.
Why are you writing?
I'm writing for readers who...
You're writing because you have stories you want to tell and characters you want to bring to
Yeah,
them.
I got to say this stuff this way and find newer and better ways to say this stuff. That's why I write. And the fact of the appreciation is thrilling. I mean, I like that.
I know.
But you know you can't ride on that.
No, I know. You can't. Now, Clint Eastwood, a man I admire a lot, has made a brilliant and wonderful movie called Mystic River.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
You should see it.
I
Now, here's
will.
what he said. He thought about this a number of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once the movie came out, and in talking to me about Mystic River, which he bought and then made it this wonderful movie, Unforgiven, considered
I remember that
a
one.
masterpiece by him.
Yes.
Morgan Freeman and
Yes,
others.
it was-
He said to me that he, as a director, wanted to make that, but he had to wait for 10 years until he was ready. You know where I'm going. Are there stories that Toni knows in her heart, in her soul, in her imagination
Yeah.
that she has to tell, but she's got to get to a certain point before she tells those stories.
I think
or
that's
not.
true. Yeah, it's true. There may be some I will never write because I don't have the time. It takes me too long. So I'm just going to keep on doing it. There is an ultimate story. Maybe it's the next book.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the one
And you
after.
won't know, you'll just write it,
That's right.
right?
Mm-hmm. But it is a question, he's right, of being ready. You read these books by brilliant writers who are not ready. You can feel their unreadiness. Or
And
maybe
what
it's
happens,
past.
What happens to them frequently, and you see, I see this, and I'm guided by people wiser than I am to see it. They can't get to the end. They can't. And they all of a sudden you can recognize it. They wake up, or there's a process in which they're not. They don't know how to go. They've run out of gas, and yet because they're halfway there, they got to finish it.
They got to do
and
something.
it loses its.
Sure, loses
you know,
its power.
that's if you're not ready. That's what happens.
Exactly
If
what
you go
happens.
out, if you know.
A lot of it is timing, knowing when to stop. Maybe the ending was like 40 pages earlier.
If you were going to give a lecture, and it was in fact your last lecture, and it might be about being an African-American woman, it might be about being a writer, it might be about all of that, what would you want to say to us? I mean, think about that moment.
I don't think I want to talk about either of those things. I want to talk, I think I would like to say something, I touched on it earlier, about how hard it is and how necessary it is for us to become and to remain humans. That means a lot. It means not giving in to the comic book version of who we are, not giving in to all this medieval rhetoric. It means not doing that. We know deep down what's right and what's true and what's needed. We got to get there. We just have to.
Thank you. I adore you. Toni Morrison, in mid-career, Love is a novel we have talked about. As I said earlier, she is the Robert F. Goheen professor at Princeton. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.